that 20 seconds will really make a difference here. Okay, that's me 2 years ago. Tonight I'm going to be talking about making the invisible visible, as my father did when he made that photograph of me and captured, made visible my feelings of vertigo and joy. I think you can probably see it. Now, my interest in photography was sparked by two people. My grandfather on the left, who always had a camera with him, and my father, who loved photography, was a very visual person. But at the age of 35, he went completely blind and diabetic retinopathy. That taught me a world about the importance and power of vision. Having lived around Chicago, my parents were both artistically oriented, and they took me to the Art Institute really often. And even as a little kid, I remember walking through the Art Institute, and every once in a while, paintings like these would just blow me away. They were so powerful, the emotions they expressed. They were not pictures just of things, they were pictures about things. And one of my favorite photographers is the Canadian Robert Bateman. And what he does that a lot of artists don't, and he shows the animals in their context. You won't see that in nature guides necessarily. But he tells rich stories about the animals, and I love doing that. Now, of course, I appreciate the work of other photographers like Ansel Adams and Elliott Porter, but I take most of my inspiration from paintings like the ones you saw in the previous two slides. The colors and textures and values are so rich, and I strive to reflect that in my photographs. My first opportunity to do landscape photography happened in 1967 when I took a road trip through the American West. And I was pleased when I got back and satisfied that actually a few of my photographs I felt captured some of what I experienced when I was out there. So that got me really interested in doing that. And also being around Chicago, there was an endless supply of buildings. So, 30 to 40 years ago, this was my first foray into doing architectural photography during the 70s. But still, my main interest was in photographing nature. I just love nature, and I've done a lot of backpacking and climbing in the American West and elsewhere, and I feel so strongly about it that I've wanted to use photography as a means of capturing my experiences and taking them home and sharing them with my friends and family. Well, meanwhile, I pursued a 30-year career in industrial design. These look dated, and they are, but most of those are drawings I made to make my ideas about the design of products visible to our clients. Okay, so it's still the same thing, making things visible. And I worked for 20 of those years, the last 20, for NCR, where I directed the company's global product identity program. And again, the whole purpose of that program was to make the values that the company stood for visible to our customers and clients. But still, my heart through all these years was in photography, into trying to share the intense feelings I had about nature, the beauty, the awesomeness of nature with others, and make those feelings, those invisible feelings, visible to others, and hope inspirational. I also enjoy photographing smaller objects and making details of them that one might not notice visible. Now, with my, I thoroughly enjoy doing both, the architectural photography and the landscape photography. And I love working with architects because my background's in design. And I love working with a creative community like that. And my first project was for Pinnacle. He sent me out to shoot the pavilion in Middletown, the AK Steel Pavilion, and it won local and statewide AIA awards. So my career was off and running. And I just love interpreting the artistry and the creativity of the affective qualities of architecture through my photographs and explaining how the buildings work visually and making visible how people who use the buildings might feel about them. I will use a lot of techniques like stitching together panoramic photos, like the one John showed you earlier, and this one, to tell a broader story about the architecture. I use a lot of photo illustration techniques. The before images are on the left, and by combining a lot of additional images into them, I'm able to tell a richer story. You know, these people in the car were all there at one time or another, but not at the same time. I had to combine about 15 different photographs to make that. And this image was extremely contrasting. The camera cannot capture that range of values. So I used a high dynamic range technique to combine 7 different exposures to try to capture what our incredible eye-brain systems can actually see. But I'd like to finish by saying that my landscape photos are not only about my feelings. They are also about a concept that we need to be better stewards of the global ecology, the web of life, if you will, which we humans have been treating so damn recklessly. My landscape photos are one person's visualization of the healthy environment we should strive to preserve for our own good. I try to make visible the legacy we should strive to pass along to our children and grandchildren. So I'd like to leave you with the realization that it's one thing to make a good photograph of things you can see. It's quite another matter to make visible things you can't see, such as feelings and ideas, which is what I try to do.